The smell of the manual, the vibrancy, everything you got in that box contributed towards your childhood and mine, and that's why today I've picked out, very difficultly, 12 Super Nintendo games that really had a massive impact on me, and I think they're important games that if you choose to collect for the Super Nintendo in 2023, you should seriously consider buying. Let's go. Talk about kicking off with a bang. Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo was their first fighting game that I ever played on a home console. Now, arguably, I'm absolutely terrible at this game. I struggle to do the fatalities, but nonetheless, I am not deterred by playing this game, enjoying this game, playing two-player with this game. I mean, it was one of the first two-player games that you could sit down and have just frantic fun with your friends during couch co-op. What intrigued me terribly as a young girl was how realistic this really looked. The sprite looked back then to what I would call completely real. I mean, it was like watching a film, it really was. And you might laugh now looking at it and thinking the graphics are absolutely terrible by 2023 standards, but compared to something like Street Fighter with a much more cartoony look, this really did seem next level. Now, if you're in the UK and you're watching this, in the 90s there seemed to be a drought on arcade machines. We were lucky to find an arcade machine in a chippy, let alone find Mortal Kombat. But nonetheless, we used to have arcades in the side of it was like a miner's welfare, and the adults would stay in one side and drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes, and the kids would be partitioned off into a more friendlier side with some arcade cabs and a pool table. Unfortunately, there was never ever a Mortal Kombat arcade machine, so when I played this for the first time, it literally was like playing an arcade, and that again was a massive appeal back in the 90s. It was fast, it was furious, again couch co-op, picking between these amazing players with these gorgeous graphics, great sound, fast paced. It was an absolute masterpiece to play this back in the 90s. Street Fighter 2 and Turbo, of course, need absolutely no introduction, so I'm simply going to waffle on about what this game means to me, like I'm doing in the rest of the episode, to be fair. But this game, obviously Turbo, hence the name, so much faster, and I really preferred that. Of course, coming from the likes of Mortal Kombat, which is natively faster anyway, I felt like I needed to emulate that experience when I was playing Street Fighter 2. So when Turbo came out, it just felt like an absolute dreamboat. Now, my favourite characters are Chun-Li and Sagat. That's because with Sagat I typically know all of the moves, and with Chun-Li I just do that kind of 100-leg jobby thingy-mabob, and I tend to win. And very similar to Mortal Kombat, in fact the entire franchise, I'm terrible. I can't do special moves unless I just button mash, unless I'm with Sagat or Chun-Li like I said. I absolutely adore this game, despite its less of an arcade feel for me and more of a kind of like unrealistic fighting game. I really felt intrigued with the levels, the different environments. I just loved it, and of course we had the introduction of this.
Perfect.
Yes, the special stage, which gave me a welcome break from trying to button bash my way through to success against my opponent. Of course, beating a car, something that can't fight back, felt a hell of a lot more pleasurable than getting my behind kicked by Ryu. So thank you to Capcom for providing such immensely vivid memories back in the 90s and the school holidays, playing this in Matt's living room. Matt, of course, always beating me. Guys, let me know, what your memories are from any of the Street Fighter games.
One, fight!
I didn't know what the Super FX chip was back on the Super Nintendo. I just knew what the logo looked like, and I knew that Starwing, or Star Fox if you're in North America, looked absolutely mince.
Damn it.
3D rendered polygons on a Super Nintendo? Give me a break. No, it was actually real. And I just remember seeing this for the first time and was like, yo, this is like watching a movie. I actually remember hearing about this for the first time. We were stood outside my friend Matt, again, you'll hear his name quite a lot, stood outside his house on the street chatting away, and he said, I've got the Starwing Super Nintendo kit for Christmas. And that's the first time I heard of it. And I think from there, obviously had the name, was scouring the magazines for it back in the day, looking at what this Starwing game was. So Christmas came and went, and of course I sampled Star Fox, Starwing, whatever you want to call it, on Matt's Super Nintendo. What an absolute feat. What an absolute amazing experience. And then of course again, we had the Blockbuster competition. I didn't play Starwing. I played the Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo at the Blockbuster competition. But I do own the competition cartridge used for this. It's actually quite a rare, obscure piece. So I have loads and loads and loads of nostalgia for this. Loads of love, loads of energy. Weirdly, I don't play it a lot. I probably should play Starwing now. Maybe a little bit more and give it a bit more time. It's very difficult, to be honest, but it's interesting because you've got 3 different routes to pick right from the beginning. I tended to pick the middle route, but for this demo I picked the route on the far left. So this is Star Fox, guys. What an amazing piece of technology. The Super FX chip, of course, designed by Argonaut Technology and absorbed in by Nintendo. Pretty cool, pretty amazing, jaw-droppingly life-changing. So there was this game, and of course A Link to the Past, that I played that were top-down games back in the day. I had this weird fascination with top-down games. I used to draw top-down maps and rooms and things when I was little, and I mean 6 or 7 years old. I used to draw these like castles and ships with rooms, different colours, items, and etc. So there's this kind of weird pulling in with anything top-down for me, especially on the gorgeous 16-bit consoles. I mean, look how gorgeous and crispy the pixels look. This really was a wicked game, and I still love it today. And there's lots of replayability with this because it's very difficult, so you do have to master it. It's a real challenge, is this, but thankfully there's a password system that when I recorded this footage, I was able to skip ahead a few levels, let's just say. I actually played this on the Mega Drive as well, but there's this weird border on the Mega Drive version, and the map was set in the border. It just didn't feel right. The Super Nintendo version was so much better, and I loved the fact as well that you could play between the different characters. I thought that, and they're both very, very different in appearance, of course, one male, one female, etc., and all the different weapons you could get. I mean, it just felt like the gift that kept on giving did this game. I remember very fondly getting to the level with the huge baby, when you see the huge baby boss for the first time, and I think I pretty much got stuck there like for the rest of forever. And again, I just use the password system now, and as you can see, we're well into the game here. The downside, of course, of using the password system is you don't have the items you would have had you gone through the game normally. So just do be mindful if you do play that, your password system doesn't give you any additional power-ups. You do have to go through the levels, and it can again add that level of difficulty that you just can't be bothered with sometimes. But this, for me, I mean, just look at the map, look at the detail, look at the pixels, look at the sprites. I was obsessed, and I'm still obsessed today. And of course, I did get the limited run edition of this. I got the Super Nintendo version and the PS4 version from limited run. I have a lot of love for this game that I'm still spending money on it, even in recent years. So check it out. This is Zombies, or rather Zombies Ate My Neighbours, if you're in North America. Arguably I'm cheating a little bit here because we've got 4 games in one, but Super Mario All-Stars was the first SNES game that I ever owned in the flesh, because I got the All-Stars Super Nintendo box variant for Christmas one year, and I spent so much time on my own playing through all of these games. In fact, me and my stepsister and my brother, we all played the heck out of these. And it was just amazing because we had a NES, my brother had a NES, and now seeing Super Mario Brothers in 8-bit leapt up to 16-bit felt like, whoa, look how crispy and gorgeous these graphics look. So I remember that feeling very, very well. These games now, I think, are pretty darn difficult. In fact, a lot of the Mario games, when you get into the later levels, become very, very difficult. But weirdly, it seems more difficult as an adult. You probably know what I mean by that, because back in the day, we didn't really have anything to compare it to. But I unfortunately don't own my original All-Stars, but I do own all the different variants of the game. There's many different variants. There's even All-Stars bundled in with Super Mario World. If you can get that boxed, it's quite obscure. Fortunately, I own it boxed. So massive love for this, of course, massive, massive love. And this game actually introduced me to Super Mario Brothers 2. Felt more like a shoot-off, a spin-off sort of thing to the Mario franchise. But I love how the different characters had different powers. I always played as Peach because she had this like floating ability, which of course just extended your jump and made things a hell of a lot easier for me. So Super Mario All-Stars, it was kind of a no-brainer to kind of enter this in. I absolutely adore these 4 video games. Fun fact, I never owned my own copy of this growing up. No, I always wanted it. It was always one of the pricier games. It was about £25, and I didn't have that kind of money back in the 90s, but fortunately some of my friends did. So I just sucked the life out of Super Mario Kart. When I was able to go in the house and play on their Super Nintendo, we'd have those moments, you know, in our bedrooms or their bedrooms, playing the hell out of this. But of course, I have every variant ever released in PAL regions today. I even have the NTSC copy as well. And this is my favourite Super Nintendo game for nostalgia, not for gameplay, but for nostalgia. And that's because, again, my friends used to laugh at me because I used to offer trade-ups and get them to try and trade with me. They never ever would. And it was always this running joke that, Gemma really likes this game, and nobody really liked it as much as me. So it was a bit of a running joke in me and my peer group. And I'm not too bad at it now as far as things go. I've learnt that you never brake in this game. Always tap when you go around tight corners. You just kind of just lower your speed a little bit and able to keep control of the kart. So I've mastered the art of Super Mario Kart as an adult, and I'm blessed to say that I love it now more than I've ever loved it. Here we go, another weird top-down fascination of mine. This is Goof Troop, and not a lot of people actually talk about this on the Super Nintendo. It's actually a really good game. It's a puzzle game. You've got to battle your way through the levels, and whilst you can't You can't hit enemies directly, you can use the environment around you, such as like the hook shot that we picked up there, and you can kick stones and you can kill enemies and then progress to the next part of the map. There is of course an end boss, and there's lots of different variations of levels. Of course, I didn't play Beyond the Beach during this playthrough test, but this is definitely one that I have a lot of fond memories with, because new name alert now, my friend Daniel had this. So we used to play a lot of this and FIFA International Soccer on the Super Nintendo, but that's way too common. We used to play the hell out of this, and I really enjoyed it because it wasn't one of those games I would have picked up in, say, the likes of Blockbuster to rent, or it wouldn't been one of the games that I've wanted to read about in the magazines. So for me, this is quite special because it's a prime example of not judging a book by its cover. I wouldn't have picked it up. When I started to play it, I thought, wow, this is really cool. So for me, I remember this fondly. It opened my eyes a little bit to play a different kind of game. Of course, the Super Nintendo, in my interpretation, in my childhood, was dominated with your AAA titles, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Mario, Zelda. But then along came something like Goof Troop, and I was like, wait a second, I could broaden my gaming palette here. So that's why I wanted to tell you about it in this episode, and I know I have spoken about it on the socials before and not a lot of you have played it, so get on it guys. This is Goof Troop on the Super Nintendo. Goof Troop. Perhaps that was a bit of a surprise for you. It was definitely a surprise for me when I played it. Like I said, I wouldn't have ever thought to pick that up. Don't ever judge a book by its cover when it comes to video games. This was co-op without couch co-op. That's right, the Lost Vikings. Many of you will know this, if not you'll know the series. So you play the role as 3 Vikings, all with different abilities, and you have to work together to use the different abilities to progress to the next level. You've got this dude that jumps, you've got somebody that can fire and somebody that can block. So once you've mastered everybody's ability, you can progress through the levels. Obviously, the further into the game that you get, the more difficult it can become. But you'll find that as you go through. But I really enjoyed that challenge as a kid. Now, if you're a bit like me and want to be lazy, you can use the password system. I'm not going to lie, it made it very easy just to show a little bit of variation between the levels during these playthroughs. But nonetheless, this is an absolute banger. I haven't played it on the PlayStation 1 though. I know you can get, I think it's Lost Vikings 2. So if anybody can shed some light on the PlayStation 1 version, that would be bloody fantastic. Love, love, and love Super Mario World. The first introduction to Yoshi, the next level Mario experience from Super Mario All-Stars. Of course, that was a rehashing of games that had already been out aside from the lost levels. So this felt like a next-gen experience, and one that I still love today, and I'm not gonna lie, one that I do still struggle on where to go today. I've completed this on my live stream on Twitch, but I had to use save states because this game, as you progress into the later worlds, gets immensely difficult, but nothing, even the difficulty, nothing will detract from the amount of fun and nostalgia that this game still brings. It looks great. It sounds great. The puzzles add a beautiful balance of challenge and frustration all at the same time. There's actually nothing that I dislike about this game. The overhead map, obviously very reminiscent of Super Mario Bros. 3, but with a bit more of a aesthetically pleasing look. Super Mario World will forever be a timeless experience on the Super Nintendo. And if you've not got a Super Nintendo, I think this is the first game that you need to play. So many future Mario games will build on this kind of concept. It's just timeless and it's brilliant. And Super Mario for me will forever shine in his 2D format. So check it out, guys. This is Super Mario World on the Super Duper Nintendo. The visual fidelity of Super Mario World, like I said, down to everything, seeing Yoshi for the first time, looking at those gorgeous 16-bit sprites, it gives me goosebumps to this day. Pilotwings still is today a game like no other. To be able to skydive, have a rocket belt underneath your feet. This game was fantastic, and it was a launch game, and it made great use of Mode 7, which kind of rotates the polygons and gives that almost 3D popping effect. I got 100 points when I played this on stage at OLL recently, but for some reason I completely flunked this skydive. But that aside, this game again I have fond memories. We used to take this one in turns and pass the controller over and try to beat each other's score. So lots of cool kind of made up couch co-op with this one. I haven't really got much else to say other than it's Pilotwings, man. It's freaking mint. Super Probotector Alien Rebels, known as Contra 3 in the American regions. If you want to know as to why they changed the titles and the sprites, I will link an article that I wrote on my website. You'll see it here in the description. Now, this game was a game that Matt introduced me to back in the day, and I happened to find my very own copy in a second-hand shop for 10 quid. I had a scrap up of change and managed to gather £9.50 that day and took it down to the second-hand shop and pretty much begged them to let me have 50 pence off so I could buy this game. I'm happy to report that they let me have the game for £9.50, so off I went with my box complete copy of Super Probotector Alien Rebels on the Super Nintendo. That was a day I'll never forget. Unfortunately, the shop has closed down now, but I drive past it even today where it used to be, and I have very, very fond and vivid memories of that. This is a really nice side-scrolling action kind of shoot-'em-up game. It adds a lot of different elements. I mean, you can see here we're in the tank, there's lots of different weapons to collect. There's even the top-down levels, so you know I'm a fan of top-down stuff later into the game. It's a very difficult game, and I can only complete this using save states because, as you can see from my performance, I kept getting killed quite a bit. So Super Probotector is a very, very fond game in terms of nostalgia, in terms of difficulty, and in terms of just general gameplay and overall enjoyment. I think I was really starting to develop my playstyle here and of course have the confidence to step away from Super Mario and Super Mario Kart and delve into different experiences. So for me, this opened my eyes because it kind of took my gaming palette off in a different direction. I'll be forever grateful for that. Now this is my favourite SNES game to play. Super Mario Kart for nostalgia, this to play. Why? Because I forget every single time on what to do and where to go, so it feels like it's the first time playing every single time. A name you've never heard before on this channel is Simon. Simon first introduced me to this. We were in his house chilling, it's a 6-week holiday, and we played the first dungeon. And I remember that feeling, oh my goodness, I needed this game, and I didn't own my own copy until I was an adult. Now I've chosen not to capture my own footage because I wanted to show a variation of dungeons throughout the game, so shout out to World of Long Plays, who I'm subscribed to, and you need to go and subscribe to get full playthroughs of amazing games like this. it seems very fitting to finish this episode with this game as it's so good. It was so ahead of its time, and of course it's a special month for Zelda games. Picking those 12 games was incredibly difficult. Of course, if you follow me for quite some time, I've got absolutely hundreds of Super Nintendo games in the collection. But those 12 I thought I would bring in. I could have included Donkey Kong Country back then, but I didn't actually play a great deal beyond the first, second, maybe even third level. That's because I was absolutely terrible at it. And I tended just to sit back and watch my friends play that one rather than actually play it myself. Of course, we had the glory of the blockbuster competition. I did come second place in that. I think my score was like 8,000 and something back in the day. But I am actually very excited. I'm digressing now, but I'm going to be beating Kev Bayliss at the Nottingham Video Game Expo. I'm going to be a guest there alongside Kev. Kev was one of the prominent Rare developers back in the day, and of course I'm going to get him to sign my copy of Donkey Kong Country amidst some other cool things. So loads of warm memories for the Super Nintendo. Really is my favourite console on the whole planet. I'm going to be aiming to buy empty boxes for the unboxed games and try to kind of beef out my smaller unboxed Super Nintendo game collection and make it into a kind of complete in-box collection. So that's going to be one of my collecting goals for the remainder of the year. But if you are new here, we do loads of cool things. We've done 10 PlayStation 1 games, 15 PlayStation 1 games that changed my life. We've done lots of Amiga stuff. There's of course lots of retro game hunts, so go and check out more episodes. But for now guys, please subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers! I need a few seconds of your time to tell you about channel memberships. If you guys want to become a channel member, click join from the main page or the second link in the description. There are 3 tiers, all with different perks for you if you want to become a team member. Thanks for your time. Let's continue with the video.